They gave him a piece of broiled fish, and Jesus took it and ate it in their presence. Well, I guess that food plays a vital part in life. The offer of food in whatever form is, in normal times, something entirely normal in what we do. And yet the offer of food for Jesus was incredibly different on this occasion, which we heard in the Gospels. We're left pondering the question, just how physical was Christ's resurrection? In Mark, almost certainly the first Gospel, the precise nature of the resurrection is left vague. And yet here in Luke, he takes a very different approach. He goes to great lengths to set out to prove the physical resurrection. In the passage we've heard, Jesus points to his hands and to his feet. He invites them to touch and see. He reminds them that a ghost does not have flesh and bones. And then he asks them, do you have anything to eat? That's far more than Jesus being hungry. That's a crucial part of Jesus' proofs. Jesus wanted to show that he wasn't a ghost, that resurrection really had taken place. Why is that so important? Firstly, I guess, we need to look at Luke's context. Luke comes from a Greek background. He's a Hellenist Jew. He would have been well versed in Greek philosophy. And there you would find a belief in the immortal soul, a belief that human life is indestructible. It comes into being at birth and returns to God at death. Luke grew up with his two traditions, Greek and Jew. And he was keen to show that the resurrection of Jesus is something which is radically different. And we need to be reminded of that too. I wonder how many people you've spoken to who, like me, have had tales said to them. Sorry, I'll start that again. I wonder if you, like me, have spoken to someone who's been bereaved and they can sense the presence of a loved one in their home. It's almost as if they're there, they say to me. And while I haven't had that experience for myself, I've had something close enough to it to at least understand it. For me, what Luke is talking about is something which is entirely different to that. It's a radical departure. Luke wants to show that Jesus is so alive, that he was able to eat fish, eat breakfast with the disciples once again. So often today we think of resurrection as being simply life after death or going into heaven. We may even speak of it in that way at funerals. But Jesus' resurrection is entirely different. For him, it really was life after death. He was embodied into life in God's new world of heaven and earth. In Revelation 21, we have that wonderful vision of the ultimate coming together of heaven and earth. The new body belongs in both dimensions of God's world, heaven and earth. And that's an important difference. Tom Wright talks about it in this way. At the end of the book of Revelation, heaven and earth will finally be joined together in one, so that there won't be any shuttling to and fro. The two dimensions will be fused at last. At the moment, our bodies are earthly only. Jesus' new body is at home in both earth and heaven. And maybe that's the great secret of Christ's resurrection, which we need to think and consider in this resurrection season. That Jesus truly is able to to bridge that great divide. Heaven and earth for him is likewise his home. He remains part of heaven and earth. In this Easter season, let's give thanks to our risen Lord. But more than that, let's take a moment to just be staggered once again at the amazing miracle that is his resurrection, and his alone.